Today we're really fortunate to have with us Lauri Ojansivu. Lauri is the CEO of Wekan, which, as many of you know, is one of the oldest, longest running, and probably the best examples of a large-scale application running on MeteorJS. Without further ado, let's bring Lauri into the discussion. And Lauri, why don't you give us a little bit of background about who you are, what Wekan is, and who uses it and how it's used. Let's go from there.
Yes, Vegan was originally created by Maxime Guandalle from France. He did choose the Meteor web framework, and that was year 2016 when I continued my maintaining Vegan, and the original creator did access to the original project, and I merged the changes back to original Vegan, but he did not participate later much. And currently it is about 9 years since this happened, starting maintaining, and already before maintaining, I had translated Vegan to Finnish. So during these 9 years, I have added and removed over 4 million lines of code, and Vegan has been translated over to 70 languages. It is used at most countries of the world, and there are some customers that have over 30,000 users of Vegan, and I have participated to Meteor forums and issues and discussions and added also many memes and kind of funny stuff there. Also, there was also podcast about Vegan and Meteor security and Raspberry Pi, and I'm also Meteor ambassador and been around a lot. So, and some parts of Vegan, like some login, have been ported from RocketChat to Vegan, and there has been about 300 contributors to Vegan.
Wow, that's quite a bit. Is there still a lot of contributors working with me? Wekan? Wekan?
Well, it is kind of hard to pronounce, but anyway, there are some, but there is very limited amount of pull requests currently. Some have added some REST API and some little changes, but it looks like the code base is not easily approachable. Many of those that have previously added some features have not continued, so I'm kind of the only one that has been from the beginning, and those 300 contributors have gone, and some do comment sometimes that is this still maintained and will it use Meteor web framework or what will happen? And currently Vegan is version 2.14, and there has been tried to upgrade it, and there is different issues with that. But anyway, for many years there has been also help to upgrade to newer versions of Vegan. And so there is kind of little amount of contributors, and currently there is kind of mixed reactions to the new features. So some do like those and some do not.
So it seems that people end up contributing when they have something, when they have a need to. At least that's what it appears to be from your description so far.
Yes, there was also previously some try to use some bounties to pay for some contributors, but immediately after paying some bounty, the contributor disappeared. That was not so successful. It's mostly someone needs to be paid by their company or have some scratch. It's to scratch or something else. Real reason to contribute.
Yeah. So on a as needed basis, so to speak.
Yes.
So you were saying that Wekan is on Meteor 2.14.
Yes.
Okay. Is that the current production release of a Wekan right now?
Yes, and there has been many security fixes that have been added to recent versions.
Okay. And there's been a push over the last, I would say, 2 years now to MeteorJS 3. So are you going to be heading in that direction? Have you started on that? What's what's Wekan's future with MeteorJS?
I'm still trying, and there have been many tries. I have some prototypes, and also have many other prototypes. It depends. Is there some new dependencies or some other help for that? Because, for example, the LDAP node.js dependency is not maintained anymore, and also there is not the Jet dependency language anymore, so there is only Blaze and React and so on. And also there are some other issues, like I would like to have a pessimistic UI that really shows when the data is saved, and some other issues that I have not been able to yet solve. But anyway, I very often follow the Meteor news and new versions, and I do develop all the prototypes and versions of Vegan all the time. So it is kind of every version is developed and nothing is stopped.
I get that. Yes. So, are some of what are the challenges? I mean, the big challenge I think to anyone that has a large, older MeteorJS code base is transitioning from fibers to async await, and also losing some of the behavior that was part of the fibers setup.
Um,
Is that a challenge at all to you?
Well, I have tried, but the async await syntax is quite difficult to understand when comparing to some other programming languages. So, for example, when I tried to make some MongoDB query and base to that other query, so even at simple example, it was not simple actually. But some have upgraded to Meteor 3 successfully, like Rocket Chat and some others. So it kind of depends on the use case. But anyway, uh, uh, I I have been trying with some human help and with AI help and trying different ways, but there is kind of some missing pieces or not up-to-date pieces that make it challenging.
Well, I think it's kind of like a general statement of with the issue with the async await is, which kind of other people have also pointed out, is that it's like an infection. Once you have to have it in one function, everything pretty much that calls to that function needs also to be async. So that's pretty annoying, unless it's a function that you can just call and forget, which is rare, like a audit log addition or some logging things. So that's what makes these upgrades really challenging, because pretty much you have to turn your entire server from being synchronous, as we had it with fibers, into asynchronous. And then that becomes an issue, especially with how Meteor code is kind of integrated across these layers in many cases as well. And especially with a big project like Wekan, that's the challenge. I think like even Rocket Chat had quite some trouble and a lot of manpower just to handle that. So I feel for Lauri with this, because that's it. In this project, it's a nightmarish thing.
So it's one of those things where the synchronous behavior is so woven through the application that if you're going to transfer your behaviors, it's really like trying to unstitch a thread through an entire fabric.
Exactly. It's pretty difficult, and sometimes the best solution is to just start fresh with Meteor 3 and bring things over one by one. That sometimes is the best solution.
I think it's with a small man team, and we're talking 4 million lines of code is what Lauri intimated before. It's a real challenge at that point to do it this way. Lauri?
Yes, and also if when there are many programming languages, like there is JavaScript, CoffeeScript, TypeScript, and then different template languages and all those mixed together, so there is kind of the with abstractions, the problem with too many abstractions system.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize you were using so many JavaScript variations in Wekan.
Yes, there are many dependencies. So because it also can log in with password login, LDAP, Google login, and OAuth. I also developed Auth0 login and there are very many ways to log in. That is one part, and then there is all those features like there is so much different drag and drop, so it is actually when trying to fix something, then something else breaks. That I do know that some of the Wekan users have been frustrated of the many fixes when something else breaks, but anyway, it is because there is too much drag and drop.
Right.
Actually, what I'm first doing is removing all the JavaScript 10 megabytes of and then starting with only having source and target checkboxes and move buttons and so on, like arrow buttons to move. And then when that works and it works in all browsers, then I add the additional JavaScript that does the drag drop. But it's kind of if there are too many programming languages, collapsing them down to just simplest code is better because currently Wekan has about 60,000 files in the cheap bundle that can be run with only Node.js and MongoDB.
Yeah, this is I think kind of exemplary why I was so resistant to TypeScript for such a long time, because it's another tool, it's another thing, and what I've kind of learned even before Weekend, but in general, there's a lot of people like to come in and add their favorite thing, and that then is deprecated and something else replaces it. So I like to kind of keep things, and this would be my kind of recommendation for any project. Try to keep the number of dependencies as small as possible. Try to keep as close to the original, you could say HTML and JavaScript as possible. And this is, I think, kind of maybe a sin of JavaScript that we had during, you could say, the boom of JavaScript, that there was just like, and even today, there's just like so many shiny tools that promise so much. And in that, I think we as developers tend to forget kind of the basic things, or the kind of lose the track of what are we actually trying to build for the application.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of my realignment as well.
So, Lauri, one of the things that is really, really interesting about you and Wekan is the fact that you have spent a lot of time playing with the different possibilities of where Wekan can run and how it runs, and also the implementation languages too, correct?
Yes, so current Wekan can run.
What's the current production stack? And then tell us a little bit about the different flavors of it that you have.
Yes. So currently, Wekan can run at a different CPU types. So there is first the AMD 64, that Intel or AMD, and also there is the ARM 64. That is usually Raspberry Pi or Mac Silicon or some ARM server. And then there is the 390X, that is the mainframe IBM Z series, where is currently Ubuntu or Red Hat Linux, and Wekan also runs there. And there also previously was PowerPC version when there was available remotely with SSH, that data center, but they did close that down. So, and then there is the operating system version. So first there is Linux, and then Windows and Mac, and
Wait, so let me ask you a question. So on all of these different chipsets and operating systems, it's running with MeteorJS?
yes, so it is Meteor 2.14, and it is using the Node.js and MongoDB for that CPU platform. And the porting to those different CPUs and operating system is mostly about installing Node.js and compiler and compiling fibers.
Oh, so you have to do a separate compilation process for each of those platforms?
Yes, so the fiber is kind of CPU specific, so I need to install that dependency and build it again for that CPU platform. But of course, because Meteor 3 does not have fibers anymore, it maybe is possible that that is not needed anymore with Azure Await. But anyway, also there are some other dependencies that need to be reinstalled at that CPU platform.
When you've had to do these compilations, have you had to make any changes to support these different chipsets?
So it is the same bundle that is first built at AMD Linux, and then that bundle is copied to the other platform or CPU computer, and then there is script that updates some of the dependencies, installs those again, and then makes the zip file again. Meteor applications can be run with only using node.js or MongoDB, or then there is also the container platforms, for example, Docker, Snap, Sandstorm, and others. So the Wekan same code runs at all those platforms, and currently all the settings, or actually some of the settings, are at environment variables. So it is for just bundle this bash script, or for Windows script that sets those variables. At Snap it is some bash script, and there are some snap commands, like for example snap set Wekan root URL is some URL.
Okay.
And for Docker, there is Docker compose file, and for Kubernetes, there is also a way to have those same environment variables, and then there is of course the Wekan web user interface and admin panel and so on.
I think it's amazing that you're able to get it to compile and run on, what'd you say, OS 390 or OS 370? I forget which one, but it's the IBM mainframe operating system.
Yes, it originally started when I did listen Floss Weekly podcast about the mainframes, and then there was some web page where I could get access to the remote SSH access to the mainframe. There is a virtual machine that has 4 gigabytes of RAM disk and about 200 gigabytes of disk space, and I currently have 2 of those servers. So other one remotely accessible, so there is web interface to start and stop and reinstall those virtual machines, and select the operating system like Ubuntu or Red Hat, or that was some other Linux slash or something. So and then SSH access to those. So because when porting, it is very useful to have access directly to some virtual machine at the actual hardware, because emulating some CPU is very slow usually, so it kind of makes compiling very slow.
It's wild. So to me, Jan, it seems that you give somebody some free resources or low-cost resources, and you say, you can use it if you could find a way to use it. Lauri's one of those guys that will find a way to use it.
Yes, and also there is blog post about that using porting Wekan to mainframes. It is also listed at the platforms at Wekan repo docs, and there is platforms and S390X.
I think if the Meteor software team hasn't already said so, they should probably be mentioning in their marketing material that that it's possible to run MeteorJS on a mainframe, and can point to Wekan for that. That would be great for this. But let me ask you a couple of other questions. One of the things that is true about the MeteorJS platform is it's an opinionated stack, and you have a variety of different front ends you can use. Right now, the reality is that the supported front end, so to speak, the official front end is React, has been Blaze in the past. And I would say that the emphasis that we see is usually on React, not so much on Blaze, although Blaze is still there. Well, there are other front ends, but for the most part, the back end has consistently been MongoDB for its reactivity or its use in the reactivity part of the entire stack. But you haven't stopped at just playing with MongoDB, have you? There's FerretDB has been one of the up and coming replacements for MongoDB.
Yes, so some do you use Wekan with FerretDB, so there is documentation about that. The FerretDB version 1 was when they did have also have SQLite version,
Mm-hmm.
but it is still available at branch of that FerretDB repo, but then they did develop FerretDB version 2 where they used code for Microsoft Document DB that is open source to have better support for MongoDB, so they leave that SQLite version to community to maintain if there is interest, because with FerretDB 2 and PostgreSQL there is support for bigger amount of features of MongoDB.
Yeah, I see on their website that they mention or they emphasize Postgres as the database backend that they're using to replicate MongoDB behavior. So are they not continuing any development support for SQLite? It's interesting to me that you mentioned SQLite because SQLite is usually seen as a solo database, not really meant for distributed applications, although I've seen some articles written recently where it apparently has been used on distributed workloads. But I'm kind of curious about your thoughts with SQLite and why you mention it.
SQLite is what also runs at most computers, so there are many computers that have limited amount of RAM memory, for example FreeDOS and Amiga and others, and those do run SQLite, and it kind of depends the scalability about how it is implemented and the concurrency, because currently Turso has made first they made fork of SQLite,
Mm-hmm.
the C version with C programming language, and try to improve it, but currently Turso is rewriting SQLite with Rust, and then they are using similar simulations for any kind of edge cases and crashes like Tiger Beetle database, and Tiger Beetle database is financial database that is debit credit, so it is not SQL database. But anyway, Turso is developing that Rust version because they got to limits with contributions and improvements to the C version. But anyway, there are many different databases uh, uh, that are currently possibilities. Also, there is those databases that have Git branch-like features for data, or for example, or Terminus DB. So the idea there is that, for example, if somebody would clone Vegan board, it would not spend time copying all the swim lanes and cards and attachments and so, but it would make like a new Git branch, so it would be immediately at new branch and all the changes go to the new branch. So it kind of make copying big amount of data immediately because there is only change in the branch.
So, what would your preference be in terms of the backend for Wekan?
It would be that kind of branching database, because while current Vegan, there is background process that can copy a lot of cards and so on and boards. There is duplicate board feature and so on, but that kind of branching would make the copying immediate because sometimes some board can have thousands of cards, and that kind of copying load can also crash Vegan or get some overload. So usually people like speed.
So, do me a favor because we've been talking about Wiccan and sort of the abstract. We have a web page up here that shows, I guess it's the Wiccan landing page when you first sign in, dashboard.
Yes, so this is all boards page of the newest Wekan, and there is new feature workspaces. So workspaces are feature where it is possible to move some board to different workspace. This feature is, for example, at Trello and ClickUp, and here it is possible to add new workspace with plus button and also add sub workspaces and rename them, and then in the Vegan version the remaining has all the boards, so those are remaining from not being moved to any workspace yet. So from there some so currently here is visible only starred boards, and those can be drag drop to some workspace there. And this is the new Vegan user interface where is new colorful icons. So previously Vegan was using the old font Avesome 4.7 version that has old code, and it was removed, saving a lot of loading time. So this current version uses Unicode emoji icons, so those are colorful, and the feedback from community has been that some would like to have the gray or black and white icons back, and some like the new user fees, but I kind of agree that the life could have some more
Okay, so for people that might be watching that are not familiar with Wekan or Trello or so on, there's some terms that you've used. You've used workspaces, you've used boards, you've used cards. Can you explain what those are and maybe demonstrate in each of these what they are?
Yes, so here I have opened the roadmap, and the newest Vegan has featured that it is possible to drag drop the width of cards, and also it is possible to drag drop the height of swim lanes. So currently maybe there is some bug because it's kind of shows through, but anyway, Vegan has very many features. So the idea in Kanban is that there is first these swim lanes. Here is green swim lanes. So when there is lists like to do, doing, done, then the cards swim from left to right.
Okay.
Kanban was originally invented by Toyota that used just paper notes and a track, and they moved paper note to next list, but this is the computer version. There is very many versions of Kanban, and then when some list here
cards represent your task or feature or something that you're working on, right?
Yes, some task. So usually there is some date when some card has been received, and when the project starts, and when is the due date, and when is the end date. And there is also new Vega features for selected the date format, so it can be year first or date first or month first. There is also features like there can be async that does the actual work, and there can be members of that board, but Asigne usually he is managing or doing the work, and it can be there can be some that requested it. Then there is also voting feature, and then there is even planning poker. So this is not just some playing some game at Kanban, but the idea is with planning poker that there is planning for or what feature is best to build first. So it is kind of productivity tool. Then there is description.
That planning poker is you're assigning a weight value to this thing. Is that
Yeah.
the idea?
Yes. So there is specific rules how to use that planning poker feature. So somebody sent pull request adding this feature to Vegan. Also there is description, so this is markdown formatting, and that is then rendered as HTML, and then there is markdown tables. Then there is also checklist and those checklist items. So it is possible to do some checklist what to do, and there is also drag drop for ordering these lists. So this is kind of a shopping list and work list. Then there is subtasks that it can have. Then there is attachments.
Are those subtasks links to other cards?
Then there is feature like linked cards.
Oh, it's a different thing.
Yeah, it's different thing. So link actually is the URL to some card. So URL has that board and card and address to that card. But link to card is different feature because, for example, if somebody makes some board that is dashboard, it is possible to link card from some other board to the dashboard board and then have overview of the most important cards and have that kind of status of the whole project. So that is one of the features. And then there is comment feature and also reactions to comments like thumbs up and so on. So these are only some of the features. Then there is board settings and there is rules. So these are.
So the cards exist within a board.
Yes.
Okay.
So the order is like first is this board. It is like a board at school. Then there is this swim lanes. So this is green swim lane here and a red swim lane. And then here is list that has cards. One list card can be opened, and then there is card. So it is kind of all the substructures, and at that card can be more details of that specific task of that project. For example, swim lanes could be used that green is the team green swim lane that is doing some task related to that team's work, and there is different team, for example, marketing team doing marketing and so on. So this is all for managing any kind of project. So it can be work project or home improvement project or shopping or any kind of. So this is general purpose tool for any purpose.
You can run your company with it and then build your Christmas shopping list activities with it also.
Yes, and it is very beneficial to use Kanban for that because when compared to some post-it notes that are on paper, when having those post-it notes at computer, there is shares function, so it can share that all big amount of post-it notes.
Is there a mobile version of Wekan?
Yes, just a moment. So there is a mobile version at Google Play Store and then at Microsoft Store. So this is for Windows Desktop, and then there is also version for Ubuntu Touch Open Store, and there is also info how to at iOS have that app icon added, so it works like an app.
Okay.
This is made with, of course, JavaScript because JavaScript can have that drag and drop, and it also can use that with touchscreens. So touchscreens are of different sizes from smartphone to tablet to big info screen, and depending on screen size, Wekan uses user interface for that screen size. So there is also different kind of mobile user interface for that mobile small phone display. And also when working as mobile app, it is the JavaScript and HTML is compatible with browsers like iOS Safari and Chromium-based browsers like Chrome and Edge and Brave and Vivaldi and Opera and also Firefox and in general modern browsers, and these browsers are what makes apps possible. And how that app has been made is kind of different, depends on different platform specific, but in this case I use this kind of service. So there is pwbuilder.com. So there I add the Wekan URL like HTTPS, and this website makes possible to check there is Meteor public directory is the manifest, and there is possible to download package for Android Store, and other storage. So this is kind of what is used. Maybe I did write that wrong, but and also for it kind of depends at each app store. But anyway, the general idea is that it uses full screen web browser. So for iOS it is Safari, and for Android it is Chrome, and for Ubuntu Open Store it is Morph browser. And Ubuntu Touch version is just changing URL in just HTML code, so it is very simple to make application.
So we started talking a little bit about some of the issues facing your migration from MeteorJS 2 to MeteorJS 3. So I want to go back to that a little bit because I think we started, but we didn't quite finish. So you want to talk us through some of that?
Yes, so there has been some feature requests from customers. So for example, when some use Kubernetes, currently Meteor requires sticky sessions, and that is kind of having too much load for one pod or server. So they would like to have round robin for attachments and others. So it kind of it is a different kind of structures. For example, Wekan would be only REST API, and it could, with round robin, it could load the attachment from any of those servers or pods, and so that is one of the feature requests. And also at some internal networks, they do not like to have WebSockets because it bypasses the FY5 monitoring postgate, and it is kind of bypassing those old security checks. And also, if using Wekan at Raspberry Pi, I have also tried some previous version of Wekan at Raspberry Pi 3 that has only 1 gigabyte of RAM memory. It does run, but it is very limited. Mostly the limit is MongoDB database that uses much RAM, but also node.js uses much RAM. So I try to find some other ways with some other programming languages that use less RAM.
Is there a commercial use case for running Wekan on Raspberry Pi?
Actually, commercial use case is first for home users. It is kind of the most available device, and then the at big factories and big companies there are very many Raspberry Pi computers. There was previously a time where there was very limited availability of Raspberry Pi for consumers because they concentrated to selling only to the business and factories and so on. So Raspberry Pi is used at very, very many places, and the benefit of the Raspberry Pi is that there is a highly stable operating system and many operating systems and very optimized software. So that is one of the use cases, and also currently the prices of RAM memory are rising very fast. RAM memory can be many €100 or dollars more expensive. This is because the AI companies are buying so much RAM memory and to run their AI models, and then there was some RAM memory company that stopped selling to consumers. They will sell only to AI companies. So the AI is making everything more expensive for everyone because prices of computers and RAM and so on are increasing.
Yeah, it's let's I kind of want to move us a little bit more
Sure.
to this, since we were started on this, to the higher view and also get some SEO points. There has been now 37 Signals company has released Fizzy, which is also a Kanban, could say Kanban SaaS, and they also have like a new OSASI license added to it, which is like an MIT license, except you cannot make a SaaS out of the code that is reserved only to the creator. So first of all, Lauri, have you heard about Fizzy, and what are your thoughts on these things?
Yes, So Visi has a very different user interface than Vegan because traditional Kanban is like many swimless and so on. So they only have visible maybe two of the current lists and there are this very different take on Kanban. But anyway, that Visi license is specifically directed also to MongoDB because that Visi license is like a non-compete clause, so it is not possible to compete with Visi if you run it at your own server. It is similar like MongoDB SSPL, so that only MongoDB Atlas has permission to provide that database service. And DHH has very strong opinions about MongoDB, like many other things. And I really love all the open source work that DHH has done with all the Ruby on Rails and and all the web products and Omarchi and others. And actually, I do also have some vegan prototype made with Ruby on Rails. But anyway, I do currently that Fiji uses SQLite database. So they did design that SQLite to handle more load and it did require many changes to the Ruby driver of SQLite, so it can handle concurrency. And but anyway, with many different topics, I do agree with. Previously, Vegan had audit for standard for public code, and there was also noted in that audit that Vegan uses MongoDB, that is SSPL. Before SSPL, MongoDB use a GPL license, but then they changed to SSPL. It is kind of first being more open source and then having the restrictions. Uh, but anyway, there are very many versions of Kanban, so Vegan and Visi are both better user interface and usability than Jira. So there are some videos about Visi versus Jira. Jira has very many configuration options.
Yeah, I think almost everything these days has better usability than Jira. So like kind of looking at what you're saying is that it will be like a project that they are going to watch and maybe get inspired in some aspects. So with that said, what's next for Weekend?
So what everyone is waiting, of course, is the upgrades. Upgrading all the vegan platforms to newest version of vegan, and then there is also improving all versions of vegan made with different web frameworks like Meteor 3 and other programming languages and web frameworks, or alternatively combining some parts of those to current Meteor 2 Vegan. But anyway, the user interface of Vegan will be similar like before because users of Vegan have liked it, but I don't know yet about the black and white gray icons because I do agree with DHH that also made that Fiji more colorful, that life needs more color nowadays. All the design of computers and houses and cars and so on has gone too much black and white and gray, and life really needs more color.
I think that's very interesting take, and it's been something that I have been going back and forward with my designer for the universe as well, because he's now proposing kind of. We started at the, you could say, flat icons that everybody else was using as well, and now he's proposing, more colorful and say fun icons. So it's kind of interesting hearing also from you that that's the same thing you are having discussions on. So at least on that front, things seems to be changing. So
Yes, some years ago there was issue to vegan to add rounded corners to Wekan cards. So that was the fashion then many years ago. And now the fashion has kind of changed because Apple has changed to liquid glass. So it is that is also another kind of forms. But now everything is like glass or shiny or like a colorful toy or something at children playground. So that is also some critique about the new design. Apple added those beta versions of iOS 26 and Mac OS. The beta versions were very slow because those animation effects take so much more resources and were not optimized. So it is kind of that liquid glass is new versions of Windows Vista like design, or alternatively the old Mac OS version were more of the glass design. So also those Mac icons have changed and the design style more to be more lifelike, so camera icon looks like more real camera. Also Microsoft have changed their Microsoft Office icons to be more colorful and all the videos like Microsoft have similar with that Windows 11 that they need to be shiny and rounded and more colorful, and it is kind of now that we are all children again.
Yeah, that's seems we agree a lot more on this than I initially thought, so that's fun. But given we cannot kind of now track all the changes that happen in the design, it kind of makes me feel super old. So Alim, I think it's time for you to take us finish this up so that I don't feel too much conscious about my age.
No, listen, I think, look, there's a rule that when everybody is zigging, you zag, right? If you want to stand out. And I think the liquid glass thing is just another, we're not seeing a lot of innovation elsewhere, so we're going to see some innovation in design, if you want to call it innovation. But what it is, I think, is just a way to stand out from the crowd a little more and sort of say, hey, we're different. And Apple's philosophy has always been, we're different, right? So how do you demonstrate you're different? You can either produce a better experience in terms of features that you produce, or, you screw with the way people interact with the product. And I have not yet updated my iPhone. My wife has updated hers. We have the same iPhone, and she is like very frustrated with liquid glass. So I have not updated mine yet, even though I might have some security issues that I'm holding on to. But hey, I mean, the world keeps changing, the world keeps moving, and we have to move with it, or we get left behind. So having said that, Lauri, it's been a delight to have you here again. You're still committed to MeteorJS as the platform for Wekan?
Current version of Wekan is still Meteor 2, so any kind of version needs to first have same features, because Wekan is what those features are. Wekan have specific UI, and so current version is Meteor 2, and there will be other versions like Meteor 3 or some other platforms, but all is developed together, and it's not in any way that I'm leaving out some platform.
You run a business, you have to be practical, and you are facing some challenges in terms of doing the migration over to 3. I was curious to know whether or not you feel that you'll be committed to staying with Meteor, or if there is another path for staying on the latest version of Node, if that is something that you'd explore.
There is also path with only Node, because that is JavaScript in general is what only runs on some platforms like Cloudflare Workers and some others. Actually, there was some recent rewrite of some code where they did a rewrite from Rust to JavaScript, and the JavaScript version was much faster and smaller and easier to use, because there was not all the round trips between the programming languages.
Okay. what excites you about new tech options for Wekan? Do you want to talk about them before we close this out?
Actually, yes. So there are new options for Vegan because if I make some new prototype, there is possible to lower my hosting cost like CPU and RAM usage, for example, if I use different database. And also I'm migrating my internal use chat from Rocket Chat to my own chat, and there is kind of a lot of changes that will use less resources at the server. Then I'm also developing exporting card to Excel, and also there will be user interface fixes for all screen sizes because the newest, some of the user interface elements are too big or too small or at some screen sizes, and also there is, I have been experimenting with Interact.js where I have a prototype where it is possible to drag multiple cards at once. So for example, I can have 4 fingers and one for each card and drag them all at once. It is kind of nice prototypes. So that and also that is what could bring independent position or some other canvas or Ravi-like features. So that is one of the possibilities because first I'm kind of making collapsing all to minimal version and then first having the no JavaScript version that works at browsers like Amiga eBrowse or NetSurf, and then adding additional JavaScript that can add those drag drop or other features, but everything would anyway work with all browsers.
It'd be interesting to see it.
Yes.
I could see myself, if dragging with multiple fingers, making huge mistakes at that point.
Well, the biggest amount of bugs is the drag drop, dragging and dropping to the wrong place.
Yeah.
Then, if somebody does many drag drop and immediately closes the browser, then it loses all the changes because it has not yet saved. It shows immediately at browser, but it has not yet saved to the back end. So there needs to be a kind of different user experience that everything is saved immediately or there is some spinner showing that it is saved because some of the current bugs are also that making some change is not saved immediately. People reload web browser or close browser and it's like they expect everything happen immediately. If there is 10 megabytes of JavaScript, it takes some time for web browser to run that massive amount of code. So it is also one of the bugs in the translations. When translations come with JavaScript, it takes some time for that translation code to run. So there is kind of many things that could be improved.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Yeah, this has been great. Jan, is there anything you want to add before we close it out?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Take care now. Bye.
Bye.